I want you to picture a really specific scene in your head right now.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine you are a modern delivery driver or like a gig worker. You are just staring at your phone.
Right.
There is this relentless countdown timer on a glowing screen. An algorithm is tracking your every single move.
Yeah, that constant surveillance.
Exactly. You are terrified of a bad rating. You are terrified of a sudden automatic deactivation. You are working harder than you ever have.
And yet you feel completely trapped.
Yes, held down by some invisible, suffocating force. Now, I want you to put that screen in your mind. Look at the other side.
Okay.
Picture the 19th century. Picture a British coal miner. He is covered head to toe in toxic soot.
Just coughing up black dust deep underground.
Right. Now draw a giant bleeding red arrow between those two images.
Yeah.
Put a massive question mark right in the middle.
What is the hidden connection between you and that miner?
Exactly. Why do you both feel that exact same crushing anxiety? Because you are not crazy. That feeling is entirely real.
It is deeply systemic.
And today, we're going to prove exactly where it comes from. We have a mountain of sources today, but our main focus is this groundbreaking paper.
Yeah, it's from the National Bureau of Economic Research.
Written by economists Suresh Naidu and Noam Heckman. We are going on a deep dive into the hidden blueprint of modern workplace anxiety.
This is such a fascinating mission because, most of us assume something really fundamental about history.
Right, we just take it for granted.
We assume the modern free market killed forced labor. We are taught that the first industrial revolution was this triumph of pure liberty.
Yeah. Factories supposedly replaced feudal lords with free, voluntary contracts. We think the chains were finally broken.
But the data reveals a terrifying truth. That narrative is a complete and utter myth.
That is a massive society-wide illusion to shatter right out of the gate. I mean, we are talking about the foundation of the modern economy here.
Oh,
Are
absolutely.
you seriously saying the Industrial Revolution wasn't free?
Exactly. The world's most advanced economic leap was not built on free labor. It was built on a violently coercive legal system.
Yeah.
A system that legally threw regular, everyday workers into prison. The core thesis of this paper is just chilling.
What is it?
Law is often capital's most hidden, most effective weapon. It is the ultimate tool to control labor.
I want you, the listener, to hold on to that feeling, that modern workplace anxiety sitting tight in your chest right now. Do not let it go, because we are about to trace its roots back 200 years. The researchers brought the receipts.
They absolutely did.
And we are going to walk you through them.
We need to start by looking at the actual handcuffs on the free market. The Industrial Revolution wasn't a victory for free labor.
Right.
That is the first massive myth we have to destroy. We need to talk about a specific piece of British legislation, the 1823 Master and Servant Act.
The name alone makes your skin crawl. Master, servant.
Yeah, it is incredibly blunt.
It sounds like something out of the Dark Ages. It sounds like literal feudalism.
Yeah.
But you were telling me this was the peak of modern progress.
It was a highly optimized tool of economic control. This British law did something that seems completely unimaginable today.
What did it do?
It allowed employers to press criminal charges against manual laborers. And I really want to emphasize that word, criminal.
Wait, not civil lawsuits for breach of contract? Criminal charges.
Criminal charges, yes.
Wait, hold on. Criminal charges for what? Did they steal factory equipment? Did they, burn down the spinning jennies?
No. For what terrible crime were they charged? Just for quitting their jobs early?
You have to be kidding me.
I am dead serious. If you left before your contract expired, you were literally a criminal.
This completely breaks my brain. Let me get this straight.
Right.
You decide you want to leave your job. Maybe the pay is just awful.
Right.
Maybe the boss is abusive. So you walk out the door, and the state police literally hunt you down.
The police hunt you down. You are dragged before a local magistrate, and you are sentenced to a house of correction.
A house of correction?
Yeah, you could face up to 3 months of hard labor.
3 months? For quitting a job? What did hard labor actually mean back then? We aren't talking about, picking up trash on the highway, are we?
Not at all. Hard labor in a 19th century British house of correction was literal physical torture. It usually meant the treadmill.
The treadmill. Like at a gym.
No, this was a giant rotating wooden cylinder with steps. Prisoners had to constantly climb it for up to 10 hours a day.
Oh my God.
It produced nothing. It didn't grind wheat. It was just for pure exhaustion. Or it meant the crank.
The crank.
Turning a heavy metal handle thousands of times a day in a solitary cell. just for quitting your job.
This wasn't some rare, bizarre occurrence either. This wasn't a dead law gathering dust on the books. It wasn't some weird loophole that got used once a decade.
No, the scale of this is what absolutely blows my mind.
Give me the numbers.
The scale is staggering. The NBER paper digitized incredible amounts of historical data to prove this. Until 1875, over 10,000 workers a year were arrested under this act.
10,000 people.
Every single year.
Think about that number. That is dozens of people every single day being thrown onto a torture wheel because they wanted a different job.
Yeah. Stealing an apple was actually less of a crime than leaving your boss.
That is insane.
It was statistically more common than arrest for petty theft. This is the daily reality of the era.
Imagine a massive scale. The golden free market sits on one side. A heavy pair of rusted steel handcuffs sits on the other. The scale is heavily, violently tipped toward the handcuffs. This was a daily operational tool used by British bosses.
We have to look at the mechanics here impartially. We are not taking sides. We are just analyzing a machine.
Right. How did the machine work?
This wasn't just random cruelty. It was a cold-blooded, rational economic calculation. It was a legally sanctioned mechanism designed purely to lock in cheap labor.
So it's about the money.
Always. And to understand how it worked, we have to look at when it was used most.
Okay, let's play a guessing game. When do you think workers were thrown in jail the most? Think about human nature.
Think about society.
You would probably assume it happens during a massive recession, right? When society is collapsing, when people are starving and desperate and fighting for scraps.
Right.
Wrong. The truth is exactly the opposite.
This is where Naidu and Yutman's data becomes truly fascinating and, frankly, deeply disturbing.
What did they find?
The researchers dug into the national unemployment data from the 1800s. They compared it to the magistrate arrest records from those exact same years. They found a perfectly inverted relationship. Look at Figure 1, Panel C in the paper.
It is a mirror image, a flawless inverted reflection. When one line goes up, the other line crashes down.
Exactly. When the unemployment rate hit rock bottom, when the economy was absolutely booming, when factories were running at maximum capacity and desperate for workers, that is exactly when the number of workers locked in prison skyrocketed.
This is a face-slapping level of absurdity.
Uh-huh.
Let me pause you right there. When the economy was at its absolute best, when there was more wealth flowing than ever before, the workers suffered the absolute worst. Why?
It seems backwards, I know.
That violates every single rule of common sense. If factories are desperate for workers, why are they throwing the workers they already have into a prison cell?
It makes perfect sense when you understand the mechanics of a tight labor market. When jobs are plentiful, workers finally have power.
Right, they can bargain.
They naturally want to leave their current low-paying boss. They want to go to the factory down the street offering better pay. They want to shop their labor around.
Because that is how capitalism is supposed to work. That is the free market.
Exactly. But that is exactly when employers weaponize the police. They use the law to trap workers who are trying to ascend.
They just locked them in.
They couldn't afford to lose their workforce during a boom, so they criminalized the act of leaving.
Throw out your economics textbook. Seriously. Just toss it in the trash. The free market wasn't free.
Not at all.
It was an illusion maintained by sheer state violence.
Let's consider the theory of a free market. It is important to contrast the textbook with the reality.
Okay, lay out the textbook theory.
In theory, when an industry booms, product prices go up, the factory owner is making more money per item.
Right, profit goes up.
Competing factories need more hands to produce more items, so they offer high wages to poach workers.
Right, and in a real free market, your current employer has to react. They must raise your wages to keep you. They have to actually compete for your loyalty.
But they didn't do that because they had a cheat code.
The legal system.
Yes. The cost of bringing a criminal prosecution was incredibly cheap. Let's look at the naked profit motive here.
Break down the actual math for me. Why was calling a judge cheaper than giving a guy a raise?
Bringing a prosecution required just one brief appearance before a local magistrate. There was a tiny administrative fee. It was usually under 40 shillings.
So pocket change for a factory owner.
Absolute pocket change. And the masters, the employers, won over 70% of their cases. In many districts, they won 100% of the time.
100%. How is that even a trial?
Because the magistrates were often other employers. Sometimes they were literally the factory owners themselves sitting as judges in their own towns.
Oh my God. The system was entirely closed. It was completely rigged.
It's like deciding how to get home in a rainstorm.
Right. Do you pay a massive surge pricing fare for a rideshare to get home safely? Or do you just pay a $2 bribe to a corrupt cop to hijack a car for you?
That is a perfect analogy. The math is brutal. It is terrifyingly rational.
The employer realizes something incredibly dark. Spending a tiny amount of money to call the police is vastly cheaper than paying market value for hundreds of laborers.
Because if you raise wages for one guy to match the competitor, you have to raise them for everybody on the floor. That costs a fortune.
But if you arrest the one guy who tries to leave,
You send a message to the rest. You use the threat of the treadmill. You use the terror of hard labor.
you crush the entire wage curve with sheer state force.
Precisely. Now, you might be listening to this and thinking, okay, this barbarism only happened in the backwoods.
Right, like in backward rural farming villages, cut off from modern civilization, places where the local lords still ruled the town.
Wrong again.
You are telling me this happened in the cities.
The NBER paper proves the exact opposite of that assumption. This system was abused most heavily by the most advanced, cutting-edge industries of the era.
We are talking about the sectors driving the entire global economy.
Yes. Cotton textiles, pig iron, coal.
These industries were the Silicon Valley of the 1800s. They represented the absolute pinnacle of human technological progress.
Steam power, massive mechanization, global supply chains.
Yet they used medieval shackles to artificially suppress wages. The hypocrisy is staggering.
The researchers tracked industry-specific price shocks to prove this. This is a vital methodological point in the paper.
Walk us through the price shocks.
Around 1872, the global market prices for textiles, coal, and iron absolutely exploded. We saw massive profit spikes for these specific commodities.
So the coal barons and the textile lords are suddenly swimming in cash. What happens to the arrest records?
Moving in terrifying synchronization, the prosecution rates for workers in those specific geographic areas spiked immediately.
Right alongside the commodity prices.
Exactly.
The lines jump together, price of coal goes up, arrests of coal miners go up instantaneously.
It is uncanny.
But let me push back here, just playing devil's advocate. How do we know that's causation? Couldn't arrests have gone up just because there were more workers in the factories during a boom?
Like more people equals more crime?
Yeah, more workers, more potential quitters.
That is a great question. But the researchers controlled for total employment. They looked at the rate of prosecution per capita.
Oh, I see.
The rate itself skyrocketed. This tracking of industry-specific shocks eliminates coincidence. The law wasn't randomly applied. It was a targeted surgical tool.
A tool deployed specifically to stop rising labor costs from eating into massive new profits. When the boss got rich, the worker got arrested.
Precisely. The advanced tech of the era relied on the primitive violence of the state.
It is a horrific combination.
Now, prepare for a truth that will make your chest tight. This is a reality that is incredibly hard to swallow.
Brace yourselves.
The workers voluntarily signed these bloody contracts.
This is the most suffocating cognitive dissonance of this whole deep dive. They agreed to the terms. They put their names on the paper.
They did.
Why? Why would anyone do that? Why put your own neck into a noose that could literally lead to a prison cell?
The answer is profound survival anxiety. We have to understand the context of the 19th century labor market.
Paint that picture for us.
It was not just competitive. It was incredibly volatile. There was no social safety net, no unemployment insurance, no welfare.
It was literally life or death.
It really was.
Imagine standing in the freezing cold. Winter is coming. You have a terrible choice to make. I want you to feel this choice. Option A is the spot market. You get hired day by day, high pay today during the boom. But you might be fired tomorrow.
And you might actually starve to death in December when the factory slows down.
Right. And option B. Option B is a low-paying one-year contract. It guarantees you won't die of starvation in the winter.
The boss promises to keep you on even when times are slow.
But it carries a massive catch. It carries the risk of a jail cell if you try to quit when things get better in the spring.
This is the paper's model of contractual risk sharing. It wasn't a free contract.
It was a desperate gamble by the week. It was a hostage negotiation.
The 19th century worker needed insurance against absolute ruin. They willingly traded their freedom.
They gave up the right to leave during boom times.
Yes, all for the ironclad guarantee of a job during bust times.
It is the most expensive insurance policy in human history. Explain the math on this to me. Explain the economic concept here.
Sure.
What do the economists call this trade-off?
They call it the risk premium. Let me break it down simply. Imagine you, the worker, generate $10 of value for the factory.
Okay, $10.
In a purely fair market, you should get paid something very close to that $10.
Right, minus the cost of materials and a small profit for the owner.
But under this system, you only get paid $4. The boss keeps the other $6.
Wow.
That massive missing chunk of your surplus value is the risk premium. You surrender your rightful earnings just to feel safe.
Just to survive the winter.
Exactly.
Visualize a pie chart in your mind. The biggest slice is labeled workers' paranoia. You are literally mortgaging your future freedom. You are selling your right to walk away.
Yeah.
Just to survive today. And the boss gets to pocket the entire difference.
It reveals an extreme power imbalance. The employer looks like a benevolent protector. They say, look, I keep you employed when the economy crashes.
I'm the good guy.
Right. But look at the math over a 5-year cycle. They're actually extracting insane super profits during the good times.
Because when the good times roll around, they don't have to raise your wages. Because if you ask for a raise, they call the magistrate.
Exactly. They enforce this extraction using the state's criminal justice system. It is legal exploitation masquerading as mutual agreement.
So if both sides were surviving on this bloody contract, if the worker didn't starve and the boss got insanely rich,
Yeah.
why did the whole system violently collapse?
Because of the exponential rise of union power. The workers woke up.
The awakening. The war for the rules. I love this part. This is where the story finally pivots.
By the early 1870s, organized labor began to truly flex its muscles. The NBER paper highlights this shift.
Give us some examples.
Look at groups like the Amalgamated Society of Engineers. They saw explosive membership growth. They began to fundamentally alter the balance of power in Britain.
The numbers are absolutely wild. From 1870 to 1875, look at the Durham Miners Association.
Oh, that's a great data point.
They grew from under 2,000 members to over 38,000 members in just 5 years.
It was a tectonic shift in the social fabric. The workers finally realized a fundamental truth.
What was it?
They didn't need to beg the boss for safety. They didn't need to trade their freedom for a meager insurance policy.
Because they could protect each other. They could pool their own resources. If one guy gets fired, the union supports him.
They created their own safety net.
Exactly. Collective action replaced the need for coercive, individual risk-sharing contracts. And they didn't just stop at mutual aid.
No, they didn't. The Trades Union Congress, the TUC, launched a massive political campaign.
This wasn't just a dispute over pennies on the hour. This was a war to completely rewrite the rules of the game. They went straight for the law itself.
They forced the hands of politicians. During the 1874 election, the unions made the abolition of the Master and Servant Act a core issue.
They made it the main event.
They rallied voters. They terrified the political establishment. They proved that labor could act as a unified political bloc.
So in 1875, history flipped completely upside down. The workers achieved the impossible. But the victory was a trap.
In 1875, the government passed the Employers and Workmen Act. Notice the change in language immediately.
Yeah, master and servant is gone. It is now employers and workmen.
It sounds like equality. It sounds like two peers making a business deal.
That was the goal, right.
That was the optics. The act completely abolishes the criminal sanctions of the old law. Quitting a job early is no longer a crime.
The police will no longer hunt you down. The threat of the prison treadmill simply vanishes overnight.
Picture the calendar flipping on the wall. It is 1874. The calendar is decorated with iron chains and prison bars.
Weak.
It flips to 1875. The chains are broken. Everyone is cheering in the streets. The workers are finally emancipated. The nightmare is over.
But wait.
Capital is about to show its incredibly cold, calculating second face. The macroeconomic consequences of this victory were hidden deep in the data.
Waiting to detonate.
Exactly. What happens when the capitalist loses their police umbrella? What happens when they can't call a cop to stop a worker from leaving?
They have to face the true, terrifying free market.
The removal of the police threat fundamentally broke the old system. The paternalistic employer-employee relationship shattered.
Let's look at the definitive proof of the historical wage suppression. The researchers provide this in Table 5 of their paper.
The data here is screaming at us.
Translate Table 5 for us.
Yeah.
What happened to wages in the specific counties that previously threw the most workers in jail?
Once the penal sanctions were abolished, wages in those exact high prosecution areas experienced a massive retaliatory spike.
They shot up.
They skyrocketed compared to low prosecution areas.
It's like a massive geyser that was capped with heavy concrete. For decades, the pressure was building and building underground.
Mm-hmm.
The moment the 1875 law shattered the concrete, the money exploded upward. Those invisible handcuffs had been literally choking off the flow of wealth to the working class for generations.
The data model validates this with incredible precision. The researchers looked at the standard deviations.
Okay, get into the math.
Every single standard deviation increase in historical prosecution rates correlated to a significant, measurable jump in post-1875 wages.
Break that down. What does that mean in plain English?
It means that the more a local boss used the police to arrest workers before 1875, the more those workers' wages shot up after 1875.
Wow.
It proves that the arrests were the exact mechanism keeping the wages down.
The wage suppression was mathematically real. It wasn't anecdotal. It wasn't just a few bad bosses. It was a systemic, quantifiable theft of surplus value.
Yes.
If you want to see what theft looks like on a graph, you have to look at these two curves.
Revisit Figure 6 in the paper. The researchers plotted scatter graphs to visualize this. They compared industry prices on one axis and worker wages on the other axis.
Right.
They did this for the period before 1875 and the period after 1875.
So before 1875, what does the graph look like?
Pre-1875, the line is completely dead flat, no matter how much money the coal or textile barons made.
No matter how high the commodity prices soared.
Worker wages didn't budge a single inch.
Before 1875, it's dead water. The boss gets filthy rich. He builds a mansion. And you get threatened with a jail cell if you ask for a cut.
There is zero connection between your effort and your reward. The graph proves it.
But post-1875, look at the line. It becomes a steep, incredibly strong upward slope. The correlation becomes obvious.
When the industry makes a massive profit, your paycheck immediately skyrockets.
For the first time in industrial history, human sweat is actually mathematically linked to the value it creates. It is a beautiful, terrifying graph.
Stripping state violence out of the equation normalized the labor market. Without the threat of jail hanging over the worker's head, employers literally had to pay up.
They had no choice.
If they wanted to keep their factories running during a boom, they had to share the profits, or they had to shut their doors. The free market finally functioned.
Now, think this oppression only worked on isolated, uneducated coal miners, deep in the dark rural hills, cut off from the rest of society.
The data proves you dead wrong.
This is a crucial distinction. We must look at how the researchers split the data.
Right. They compared highly mobile, competitive urban centers, the cities and boroughs, with the isolated rural areas.
You would naturally think the city would be free. If you live in a city with 50 textile mills, you can just walk down the street to another factory.
You have options. You have mobility.
That is the logical assumption. But the exact same precise legal coercion happened in the middle of modern cities.
Surrounded by competing textile mills, the statistical significance holds up perfectly in both environments.
The guy running a hyper-modern textile factory in the middle of a bustling, crowded city, he acted exactly the same as a rural coal baron. Exactly the same.
When power is totally imbalanced, the most modern city will use the most primitive violence, just to keep costs low.
The urban employers colluded.
They use the magistrate courts just as effectively as the rural lords.
Geographic mobility does not save you. Being surrounded by 100 other job opportunities does not save you.
Not if the overarching legal framework traps you in place.
Urban workers were just as incredibly vulnerable to the Master and Servant Act as rural ones. The law was inescapable.
But the universe always demands a price. Every action has a reaction, and this is where the modern nightmare truly begins.
We have to face history's cruelest plot twist.
This is the part that hurts. Because they won. They got what they wanted.
They won their freedom, but with the newfound freedom to walk away anytime, employers completely tore up their end of the unwritten deal.
The paternalism evaporated.
The safety net was incinerated. Remember that risk premium. Remember the guarantee that the boss would keep you on during the winter? Gone.
They no longer felt any obligation to keep workers on during economic crashes. The researchers provide clear evidence of this in their appendix data.
Look at the unemployment data immediately after 1875.
What happened to the workers in those exact geographic areas that used to rely on forced contracts?
Unemployment began to climb significantly.
The moment the economy dipped, the bosses fired everyone. They didn't have the long-term contracts anymore, so they had no legal or moral obligation to retain staff.
This is the ultimate monkey's paw wish. You asked for your freedom, you got your freedom, you can leave whenever you want.
But guess what? The boss can fire you tomorrow, for no reason at all.
This is the massive unraveling of paternalism. It is the transition to what we now call at-will employment.
It meant higher wages overall, yes. But it introduced massive, terrifying volatility into the life of the average person.
This is the exact, precise, historical moment modern workplace anxiety was born. You won your liberty, but you instantly fell into the terrifying abyss of a modern unemployment crisis.
The anxiety of not knowing if you can pay rent next week, the fear of an instant layoff. That fear was birthed in 1875.
Let's take a giant step back from the specific data tables. What is 19th century Britain actually trying to teach us today? What is the macro lesson here?
It teaches us that the labor market is not a naturally occurring phenomenon. It is not a force of nature like gravity or the weather.
It's a highly engineered laboratory of power.
That is the deep underlying thesis of this research. We have to view this impartially. The law is never just some floating, objective concept of justice.
The law is a receipt. It is the final bill of sale. It details exactly which class won the power struggle at any given moment in history.
Whenever capital becomes overwhelmingly powerful, so-called free contracts are not free at all.
They are nothing more than forced labor wearing a very polite, well-tailored legal suit.
When the power dynamic is lopsided, the stronger party will use the state to encode their advantage.
We don't have the Master and Servant Act today. You can't be thrown on a treadmill for quitting your job. Or do we have something eerily similar?
The specific laws have certainly changed. We don't use physical torture anymore.
Right.
But the mechanics of leverage, the extraction of a risk premium from the vulnerable, that underlying math remains entirely intact.
Think about the dark glass towers of modern tech companies. Think about the millions of lines of AI code running our lives right now.
Look at modern, brutal non-compete clauses.
What? They lock you out of your own industry if you dare to quit. They tell you, you can leave, but you can't work anywhere else.
Look at the gig economy workers we mentioned at the start, getting their accounts automatically suspended.
Fined by invisible algorithms with no human judge in sight. The platform dictates the terms, and the worker has zero leverage.
Look at white-collar workers, middle management, facing sudden, ruthless AI optimization and mass layoffs via email.
The mechanisms of control have simply evolved. They became cleaner, more sterile, less visibly violent, but perhaps more comprehensively restrictive.
The algorithm is the new magistrate.
The essence of power hasn't changed one bit. It just put on a nicer mask. It wrote better code. As you look at your own job today.
As you feel that invisible force pressing down on you.
As you stare at that countdown timer, you have to ask yourself a terrifying question. Are we just repeating the exact same history from 200 years ago?
The data from Naidu and Heckman gives us the lens to see it clearly. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive.
The past is never truly dead. It is just running quietly in the background of our modern lives.
Absolutely.
Keep questioning the rules of the game. Because someone else wrote them. See you next time.